Today I'm going to give you golf's most overlooked lessons. 3 things that now the season's starting, if you get these right, you're going to have a successful time out on the golf course. Let's get into it. So the first most overlooked thing that you need to sort out is your grip. Now, we've obviously come back now to the start of the season, and you may obviously have a good grip, or you might not do, but you probably maybe just get into a little bit of a bad habit as you start the season. And what we just need to do is give ourselves a little MOT on these 3 points to make sure that we're giving ourselves the best chance of actually getting the ball somewhere close to the target that we're going towards. And a little thing that I want you to check is basically how you're positioning your hands on the golf club, because what I will see is, like I say, people come back from maybe a layoff over winter and they just sort of, oh well, I know how to hold the club, and they put their hands onto the club into a position where they think is comfortable and feels okay, and it actually turns out that the hands might not be in the right place. And if we do have a poor grip, this can actually have an effect, a massive effect, on how we're swinging the golf club and ultimately where the golf ball is going to go. So we want to try and work towards a more neutral grip, because if we didn't, what would happen? We would have maybe either a strong grip or a weak grip, and that would have an effect on the golf ball. If I were to address it here and I had a strong grip for a right-handed player, that means the hands are coming away from the target. If I'm aiming here, that's going to close the club face. And what we would potentially see is something where the ball would maybe go shooting off to the left-hand side. Vice versa, I might have a weak grip, which for a right-handed golfer means my hands are turned a little bit more towards the target. And again, that'll have an effect on the golf club face. It's going to get the face a little bit more open. And as I come in, that could see the ball shooting out towards the right-hand side of my desired target. So real simple, and what you can do, if you just take 2 tee pegs and just pinch them into your little thumb sections here, they're going to give us a really good indication of where we want our hands to be. Because once I now place them on the grip, and if you're an overlapper and interlocker baseball, this all is the same, all we're looking for is that if we think of a clock face, what I want to try and do, if we had 12 here and 1 on this side, as my hands are now on here with the tees pointing forwards, what I want to try and see is that both tees would just be looking at around about 1 o'clock. It's basically pointing up to somewhere near my right pec or armpit. What I don't want to do, like I say, if I was too strong, we would see maybe they're going towards 3 o'clock, and if I was too weak, we might see them at maybe 11 and 10 o'clock. So really simple, and you can do this if you're at home and you've not got a golf club. Literally just get your tees in and just practice it, because once we've got a good grip and we see that they're now pointing to our desired direction, it makes the golf swing easier, because I'm not having to try and counteract what problem I've caused with a poor grip. So have a little go, see that you're looking at round about 1 o'clock, and then from there, then once we've got this good grip, we should have a good chance of hitting an okay golf shot. Pretty much just like that one, my tiny little draw. So golf's overlooked lesson number 1, get that grip right. So the second most overlooked lesson, and I would say if you don't get this right, you're making the game really, really hard for yourself, and everybody, every single golfer has the ability to do that, and that is the correct aim. So what we would see is that we need to align our club to our intended target, and then we need to also align our body. If we think of the club, firstly, we need to pick something in the distance that we're going to align ourselves to, where we want our ball to finish up. So you could probably make out a mast in the distance as to where I want to hit it. So now my first job is to align my club face up to that intended target. So as I'm coming in, I want to place the club, and whether you've got a guide on top or not, we might want to use that. But what we want to try and do is make sure that it's sitting square to it. What I wouldn't want to have happen is, once I've aimed it, and we can use the yellow line as a bit of an indicator, I wouldn't have it pointing off in the wrong direction, because now I've got to counteract it, or pointing off in a different direction here again, because we can see it's not right, and I've got to do something to fix this in my golf swing. So by getting the club face aimed correctly at the start, it's actually going to give us a better chance of getting the ball going to where I want to. If you think of throwing a ball, I wouldn't think I'm going to throw it at you watching now and do it this way. I've got to try and work back to it. So get that face aim squared. The next big part is getting your body alignment correct. So with the body alignment, what we've got to try and think of, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, if you haven't, this is a great analogy. We've got to think of a train track. We know we've got our target for our club face, but what a lot of people get wrong now is that they try and then aim their body up towards the same target. That isn't what we want to be doing. We want to try and see that we would think of a train track, i.e. we have the right side and the left side of the track, and if it's running straight, those lines just run parallel. And that's what we want from body alignment. We would see club pointing at our desired target, then our body, being feet, knees, hips, shoulders, are all running parallel to it. I don't want them open too much, or I don't want them closed too much, again, because that's going to influence the arc that my club would swing on. So then I'm going to have to try and remedy it on my downswing. So once we've aligned that club as a first point, then get the body nice and parallel. From there, then we should have an arc that's square to the target, and it's going to help us start to hit some better golf shots. It's 1 yard right of my target, so I'll give myself a fail, but I'd be pretty happy with that golf shot. If you're enjoying this lesson as well and you want plenty more free videos and lessons, hit the subscribe button down here for more. Let's take a look at this third and final one. So the third and final most overlooked lesson that we have to sort, and like I say, again, a lot of golfers will have the ability to do this. These are all things that are the basics, and if we get them right, it makes the golf swing a lot easier. We don't need all these fancy fixes. Do the basics right and you'll be a pretty decent golfer. So when we look at the actual setup of the golf swing, and when we've talked about those 2 points, we see people maybe who grip it really well. They've aimed the club really well. But then when it gets to weight placement, we see some weird and wonderful things starting to happen with where the weight's placed and where the spine's tilting. Now, with a driver, I want to try and hit it on the up. I'm trying to launch it into the air. And that can lead to a lot of people actually hanging back too much here in an aid to try and feel that they're actually moving backwards to help this ball launch. And that's not the case. And a very similar sort of scenario with an iron, we would see that we're trying to hit down on it to actually get it up, but again we see people leaning to try and actually help it. Now, the weight as well can have a huge impact on your strike, because if you get too much in your toes or too much in your heels, that's going to drag the sweet spot closer and further away from the golf ball. So as you stand to it, a couple of little things that I want you to try and work on. As you've addressed that club to your target, firstly think about the weight in terms of where is it in your toes, your heels, or the middle of your feet. We want to feel that we're a bit springy, we're a bit bouncy, and feeling that it's running through the balls of our feet. Don't get it too much in your toes, because you'll push the heel towards the golf ball, and don't get it too much in your heels, because you'll drag the toe towards the golf ball more. So just try and feel that you're a little bit springy, you're a little bit active and nicely balanced. Then as you actually stand with a driver, I want you to feel like you've got pretty much 50-50 in weight, but you just have a tiny little lean of the spine away from the target. Don't feel like you're about 70% in your back foot, and don't feel that you're maybe the other way trying to get in ahead of it. We want to try and see it's pretty evenly paced with just that tiny little tilt. Then as we work back, we would see it transfer a little bit, and then as we come through, it shifts, and we try and just get the spine tilt just to help it up. Try and avoid in your setup being really excessive in one or of the other feet. And even with irons, until we get to sort of chipping, we always want to see that we're round about 50-50 as a rule of thumb. Don't get excessive, because you're then going to have to counteract it through the golf swing. So we get a good grip, we get good alignment, we see that we're nicely balanced and we're poised to try and get that middle of the club face with the correct weight placement, and from there then, oh, it's the best one, a tiny draw down the middle. We're going to have a good chance at actually hitting some quality golf shots. Like I say, very overlooked points and very basic points, but if you do the basics right, it makes the game a lot easier. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed that lesson. Hit the sub button if you do, and I'll see you in another one very soon.